YouTube. Good night, good evening, good evening, good evening, good night, and welcome to Mindful Live. I am your host, Nathan Springer. Thank you for being here. Mindful Live 469, currently 9:52 in the beautiful Twin Island Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Welcome, 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 one and all. They say here doesn't exist, it's not a real place, but also they say it's God's abode. They say God is a Trini. I guess we'll see. We'll see about all of that eventually. In the news today, what we're looking at? Well, several interesting things locally. We have Newport scanners. So, in one of the biggest transshipment spots in the world, part of the linkage between South America, and we know what some of the major exports of South America might be. So right between South America and the rest of the world, we sit there. And for quite some time, the port scanners were not working. Reportedly, some of the scanners they had, someone damaged it repeatedly with a forklift. Somehow, someone's been damaging our port scanner with a forklift repeatedly by mistake. And we cannot find the culprit yet, apparently. What we gonna do? Further in the news, according to what we get to today, I'm seeing our Prime Minister again lamenting. Listen, this brother could lament, This brother could lament, and it kind of annoys me each time. I understand where he's coming from, I think, but it annoys me like, sir, you are the one in charge. It's part of the reason like why you expect men, a key component of masculinity. They talk about stoicism, you know, that ability to hold your emotion in check. Because if a man is supposed to be the head of a home, you have your daddy as the head of the home here. He can't be complaining about all the problems to the family when he is supposed to be the one that is supposed to find a way to solve them. It seems kind of wrong side. The constant complaints, the delays, and he's talking about regulations. So, aren't you in charge of the government, and don't regulations come from the government? Like, oh gosh, you will complain about something that you're supposed to be in charge of. And we'll go down some of that regulation and government control line and see how well these government things function. I see a man in San Juan suing WASA over some sewage that was just bubbling out in his store. His store had to close for a month or so. Tough luck. He is suing to try to get that out, get that back. And in the tone of lawsuits, there have been many lawsuits. We were talking about this sometime. There have been many lawsuits, a chain of lawsuits, especially against the former commissioner, Tanti Earls. There were quite a few lawsuits aiming to get her to make an adjudication on people's FUL, people's firearm user license. And now these lawsuits have been upgraded and passed on to the new acting commissioner. Let's see what he would do. It seems like Ms. Erla Christopher's modus operandi was to basically ignore it. I mean, it seems in hindsight that her plate was quite full, but nonetheless, many people were complaining that there was no movement on this. Let's see now if firearm licenses start moving through the system. J is Greek and means earth, okay. She was just praying over them. Well, she has a lot of prayers to do because the investigation continues. I'm hearing that they're looking to investigate her financial records, dig into her financial records. Now, I don't know how well they are going to do on that. I saw, well, I mean, if she's under investigation, I guess those will that will be part of the investigation, digging into her financials. I hope all of her financials are above board, because they're looking. They are looking. Let's see if I could find that. And I mean, it's in a similar train. Gary Griffith recently had some run-ins with them too. I think we might just take a browse of that to see, because they were looking at Gary's financials too. That's multiple commissioners. They've been looking at their financials now. GMS, you will be blocked and deleted for that kind of folly. Relax yourself. Who is the acting commissioner? The bulletproof past. Yes, Abdul, that is the acting commissioner. He is the acting commissioner, yes. He is. I hear there's a new political coalition in the works. Brand new coalition in the works out here. So it's not going to just be the UNC's coalition. There's a whole new coalition on the horizon there. And you know, this might work out for our betterment in the long run. Who knows? One can be hopeful. NTA and company. One can be hopeful, you know. You look at the German elections. It recently went, when was that? Sunday. And you look at many of those European parliaments, and there are lots of parties. You're talking 10 plus parties in an election. And when I say 10 plus parties, I'm not talking fly-by-night parties that do nothing and have no money and have no resources and have no real point to make. 10 real parties, so that even after elections are gone, in order to form a government, you need to have coalitions nearly all the time. Basically, all of their governments are coalition governments. What that requires is a lot more compromise on the parts of parties. Parties can't bulldoze their way through. There requires some compromise inside there. Listen, it's best Ella resign and go home with her benefits, because that man want that job bad. I don't know about that. I don't know what you say. Ronnie's World, Gary, I'm happy you didn't go back with the UNC that you told us were trash. Internal squabbles inside of the UNC persist, and maybe it's really for the better that that new coalition comes, so that there's some good variance in the options we have opposing the opposition right now. Some better variance in those options. I think that's required. So, you know, grateful for that. Who is the company that want to invest in Petrotrin? What was it by? I can't something steel, if I remember the name. No. I'm thinking metal. I can't remember who was it that wanted to invest in Petrotrin. I believe it was an American company. The thoughts are swirling around. Good night, Alex. All right. So once you're on the inside, make sure you hit that like button, double tap the screen over there on TikTok. That's how you hit the like button out there. Good night, Akeem, sorry. And if you are looking at this over there on YouTube, do hit that like button there too. You know, it's much appreciated. Allows the algorithm to know that, hey, we're looking at this. This is some good stuff. Send out the notification and stuff to more people. Necessary. So appreciate it if you do hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe, Nathan Springer, over there on YouTube. Do subscribe, please, and thank you. Drop a comment. All right, let's dive into some of the news, port scanners to boost efficiency and security at key ports. One of 4 newly acquired port scanners was commissioned today at the Port of Spain by Finance Minister Colm Imbert and Works and Transport Minister Rohan Sinanan. 2 will be stationed there, while the others at the port of Point Lisas. Imbert said the scanners will improve detection of illegal contraband, narcotics, and weapons. They can process up to 25 containers per hour, far surpassing the previous scanners 60 per day. Authorities plan to scan 75% of all containers to meet international standards, but according to Comptroller of Customs Riyad Juman Comptroller of Customs is pushing for full screening. Scan everything. It's going to be interesting. If they do in fact scan, and this is the way that you could create systems to kind of protect from corruption. Even if you have a system where it's required to scan every single container, well, it will be harder to try and dance around that. Well, that's what they're pushing for, and we will see. And we'll see how long these scanners last. And it's interesting, there seems to be no security cameras on the port that could detect who exactly is damaging all of these scanners. How are these scanners just magically being damaged? And they have 2. So if they have 2 on the port, as they say, 2 will be stationed in the port of Spain. If they have 2 there, and at 25 per hour, that's what? 50 per hour with both of them? But China has the solution. What are you trying to solve, and what solution does China have? They don't clear enough containers a day to say it will slow them down. Well, that was already a problem, That was already a problem on the port. Sinanan calls for maturity in port negotiations. So, slow down on the port was already an issue. Minister of Works and Transport Rohan Sinanan has called for an end to protracted negotiations between the Port Authority and port workers, saying a resolution is crucial for the Port of Spain to reach its full potential. The line minister's remarks follow a series of industrial actions that disrupted operations last year, only ceasing after the court granted an injunction. He spoke at the unveiling of 2 new mobile scanners. We know that. We need to put an end to the negotiations that are long overdue. I am hoping that good sense can prevail and we can come to the table with mature solutions and suggestions. The Port of Spain should have broken the record for the number of containers passing through, but because of that 2-month period where some vessels bypassed us, we were not able to reach the figures that would have shown that the economy is really a vibrant economy, he said, adding that the Port of Spain could surpass the Point Lisas port in performance. The Point Lisas port was named joint winner of the Caribbean Shipping Association's Ludlow Stewart Container Port Competition 2024 alongside Manzanillo International Terminal of Panama. He says the port cannot pay something that the port cannot afford. We want to settle these negotiations, but one party cannot just hold to a hard position and then we reach nowhere. It's the same problem anytime you see these issues, Like, how difficult should that be? You could determine the amount of money that the port makes, calculate the workload of the workers, and see, determinant on how much money they make, you pay them that. when you have unions inside of the port workers, and it's the unions are incestuous in Trinidad. You have unions for this, unions for this, and 3 unions covering one thing. And then you look at the union leaders and the big boys in the union, and you find out they have a labor company, a company that supplies workers, or something ridiculous like that. Yes, something ridiculous like that. And they are the ones supplying all the workers for the thing while representing all the workers on the other side. Mobster mafia business. And while they do that, they hold the business community at ransom. And the reality is, the businesses that are extremely large, they have ways of bypassing that. The businesses that are willing to do corrupt things, they have ways of bypassing that. So the people that would be punished most would be the small or medium-sized businesses that want to run above board, that want to run according to the legal framework that we have. Or you want to do the right thing, you would be punished. The Prime Minister, speaking on issues similar, says Trinidad and Tobago specializes in delay, obstruction in development. The Prime Minister slammed the country's slowness in treating with development projects, describing it as specializing in delay and obstruction. Speaking at the Sud Turning for Nutrimix's $150 million animal and pet food plant in Point Lisos, Dr. Keith Rowley said the country urgently needed to build its own non-energy sector because existing reserves are being depleted. However, he noted despite best efforts, some in the country don't share that urgency, particularly with the slow approval process. One can sometimes get the impression that some of our entities are more concerned about the process than the outcome and could really become quite annoying. This nearly sounds like what Donald Trump and his guys are talking about. It nearly sounds like what Donald Trump and his guys are talking about. Yes, Trinidad, you've been missing. Yeah, it nearly sounds like the issues that are happening right now in US politics. No. He was getting sickening, and his name is already a ridiculous troll name, so goodbye. The problem that they're facing in the US politics is the same issue that they talk about, where the bureaucratic side of the government has grown so large and so strong that they are basically another branch of government. The design of our government, you're supposed to have the legislative branch with the parliament and the parliamentarians. You're supposed to have the judicial branch, and then you're supposed to have, well, we don't really have that executive branch in the same kind of setup, but an executive styled branch. When you create a big, massive, complex bureaucracy, what you end up with is the bureaucracy being a buffer between all of the branches of government and the citizens. So the bureaucracy eventually becomes so strong that they are a power unto themselves. How should it be that the leader of our country should be complaining about bureaucracy in the country? Shouldn't he be the one that has a say on how the bureaucracy goes? At least to some extent. And to me, every time he says this, I keep going back to this analogy where our politics is like a massive machine already doing what it's doing, and the politicians are but spare parts. They're changing parts. You could change a belt, you could change a gear wheel, but the belt can't change what the machine does. You put in a new belt, and it might make less noise, but the machine is still going to do what the machine does. While the design of the system is supposed to be that the politicians are supposed to be able to control what the machine does and even change the outlay and design of the machine itself. If it is that our Prime Minister, who has been our Prime Minister for the last decade, who has been in politics since before the majority of Trinis were born, and he is complaining about the design of our government, because when he's complaining about bureaucracy and things being passed and approval processes, who does the approval? And at least we're seeing good, luckily for the US, I guess, in some sense, they're having a fight over in their law, in their courts over this. Does the leader of their executive branch have the power to decide how the bureaucracy shapes up? Can he decide to fire off a whole chunk of them and remodel and reshape it as he sees fit? And to me, to some extent, that should be true. Why? Because these are the representatives of the people. As a people, if we want to decrease the red tape around things, how could we get it done if the people we vote for can't even change that? How are you to tell me that the people in our country that run the bureaucratic processes, that run approvals and permits and licenses, none of the people that they answer to are people we could vote for? So we have aspects of governance, aspects of the government that we have zero control over, we have zero say over. They're just bureaucrats letting you have it how they see fit. I don't like that. Rowley said he had heard the reports of people expressing an interest in investing in the country who ultimately didn't because they were afraid of the process. He acknowledged the need for regulations, but also chalked up much of the delays to work ethics. Listen, again, the process. Who is supposed to tweak this process to make investment more realistic? Not the leader of the country. In these conversations, in these statements, Dr. Rowley speaks like, he's just a normal man sitting in the bar complaining. Aren't you the one that is supposed to have control over the process? What have you done to fix that process? I mean, if you as the leader of this country heard reports of investors scared to invest, shouldn't you be trying to rectify that? Like, you shouldn't even tell us this. The only time you tell us that you heard about investors scared away from the country is after you finished rectifying what the scary thing was. Whatever it was that was scaring them away, when you finish rectifying that, then come and tell us. It's like when Mr. Hines told us that people offered him watches and this and that for a bride. No, you don't tell us that, sir. You tell us that after you have those people arrested. You can't talk about things within your sphere of power, within your purview, and then talk like if you have no control over it, and oh my goodness, how frustrating this is. If it's frustrating for the Prime Minister, who is the person who at least has the greatest semblance of some control and say over what happens in the governance of our country, if it's frustrating him, what is it supposed to do to us? What is it supposed to do to us? The Prime Minister himself is frustrated. He can't take it. And if he's frustrated and he's in charge, it's like the captain of a boat, and we're running into some iceberg waters. And the boat captain is running out to the top deck and screaming, "Oh my goodness, people, look at the size of those icebergs. I'm not sure we're going to make it, people. Oh my goodness, what we going to do? Oh, God." But you're the captain. Throw in reverse, turn, something. Aren't you in charge of anything here? Or is it that Dr. Rowley is trying to signal that to the country? That's actually what he's doing. He's trying to show and highlight to the country that, hey, I don't actually have much power. I can't really do much out here. Because, you could just come out and tell us that if that's the case. But poor governance continues. San Juan businessman sues Wassa over sewage backup. A business owner in Pittsburgh, San Juan, has taken legal action against the Water and Sewage Authority after he had to close for 45 days because of his sewage backup. Matthew Edwards Trading and Shaw Brews Enterprises alleges negligence by the Water and Sewage Authority led to significant financial losses and property damage. Justice Frank C. Prasad is expected to give his ruling on March 6th. What initially appeared to be a minor plumbing issue quickly escalated as sewage began gushing from the toilet, spreading throughout the store and damaging electronics, gaming consoles, and other merchandise. The overflow persisted despite efforts to contain the flooding, including manually plunging the toilet and channeling water away from products. That sounds like a nightmare. Like, let me get disgusting here. If you have a cesspit is a hole in the ground, cast a little square container, and it contain all your refuse from your toilet. If your cesspit gets full and your cesspit starts backing up, and when you flush, things starting to, come back this way, that is extremely disgusting. But I would prefer that than what this man is going through, because there's a difference. What is in your cesspit is, at least for the most part, yours and your family, people in your circle. A central sewage system. You're talking about all the splashers and floaters from a whole district. There's a difference, Ronnie. There really is a difference. There really is a difference. Lots of calls, and they stuck on making the repairs. So this started, when did this start? an issue on October 27th was the beginning of that issue. October 27th, when was that? 2021. Let's see when they finally got it repaired. December 10th. So October is when sewage start gushing. Refuse start bubbling up. In October, December, so they skip whole November. December they came and finally fixed it. And they didn't want to pay him compensation, so now he is suing them. I don't know. I guess we'll see what Justice Frankie says. But to me, I'll say pay a brother. For me, bro, pay the brother. Pay the brother. That's... That's a hard one to take. Let's see how the acting commissioner is doing. Somebody say bulletproof pastor. At least we have spiritual leaders in our police service. Acting Commissioner of Police to decide on FUL applications. The Acting Commissioner of Police has been ordered to decide on 2 firearm users' licenses applications in separate cases filed by 2 businessmen. Justices Marissa Robertson and Devendra Rampasad made the orders on February 24th. And last week, respectively, they declared there was an unreasonable delay in deciding both applications in breach of the Commissioner's statutory duty. Rampasad ordered the acting commissioner to decide by April 30th, while Robertson ordered a decision by June 6th. Both businessmen asked for their names not to be published for fear of being targeted by the criminal elements. In the case before Rampasad, the businessman from Bamboo Number 2 said he applied for an FUL and received his provisional license in August 2021. Since then, he said he has not received an update on his FUL application, nor has there been a response to a pre-action protocol letter in November 2024. I am affected by the failure of the intended defendant to render a decision on my application because of the nature of my business. I am usually in possession of large amounts of cash daily. So the judge says you have to answer, and I guess that's what we're waiting on now. These cases started under the previous commissioner. So it's not like it's directed necessarily specifically at the new one, but he is going to have to answer because he holds the office now. Cop Erla probe widens, white collar crime investigators looking into suspended commissioner's financial records. Sources close to the investigation said the unit will also meet with a representative from the office of the DPP to discuss a financial aspect of the matter, which will involve examining financial transactions undertaken by the suspended commissioner, including the movement of cash, to better understand a timeline of events. If it is that Tanti Earls is fully innocent, somebody pulling out all the stops to make sure she doesn't look at her, because just the tone and tenor of the information given in this article, it's suggested already that she may have made some fishy moves, some shady moves in her financial dealings. But as far as I know, there isn't any proof, at least published proof on that yet. But when you see that the White Collar Crime Bureau are starting to look at a new angle on this, and they're going to talk to the office of the DPP to discuss a financial aspect of the matter, which would involve examining the financial transactions, including the movement of cash. By saying that, you're seeding a suggestion in people's minds that she moved some cash, that something suspicious went on there, that there was some fishy business in the finances going on. Is that actually so? Like, if it is so, well, Tanti was doing the most. But if it is not so, that suggests to me that somebody is on a mission. Because this is damning already. This is already damning. You're suggesting she moved cash. You're suggesting there's pretty obvious view of financial impropriety enough that you're going to have a discussion with the DPP about it. Interesting. I would like to see. Because most likely there's nothing to come out of it. I don't know. It's just very interesting, and it's all playing out in front of our faces. The chances are very likely someone of the people that we see regularly in police outfits speaking to us, pontificating, sounding morally upright, very, very likely at least one, maybe multiple of them are involved in some very dirty activities. This whole story seems to signal that it's either there was serious involvement by the police in highly criminal and strange activities, or there is someone or some people inside of the police service willing to accuse fellow police of doing just that, while it's a lie. Either of those two scenarios is a scary scenario to think about. And we are in that stage, one or the other. You don't get both. We don't get both. Let's touch on some politics before we dive out. Let's touch on a little politics before we call it a night, we call it an evening. Pushback on Kamala. I don't mean this in an inappropriate way, but just reading that out there, it nearly sounds like some kind of soca, eh? It nearly sounds like the line of a like the opening of a chorus. Pushback on Kamala. Pushback on Kamala. New election coalition forms without UNC. A new political coalition has emerged to contest this year's general election. A statement issued on social media on February 24th identified this coalition as the People's Alliance. The members of the National Transformation Alliance, NTA, Honesty, Opportunity, Performance and Empowerment, HOPE, and the Community Reformation Network, CRN, a non-governmental organization which works in Shoguana, Scunupi, and parts of East Trinidad. The alliance will be launched at Mount Lambert, Eastern Main Road on March 12th, 6:30 p.m. In a WhatsApp comment on February 24th, NTA leader, Gary Griffith said UNC leader Kamala Prasad Bisessa's actions to date had made our recruitment drive much easier. Since 2006, he continued. The UNC has been split down the middle by the arrogance of some people who did not want the party to expand. Griffith said this is what caused then party leader Winston Ducran to form the Congress of the People in 2007. He added Prasad Bisasa is now scrambling to solidify the UNC's base support. Griffith said this is why she's talking about racial discrimination and profiling. This is what usually happens when you are in quicksand. Griffith said Prasad Bisasa is causing many voters who are on the threshold, who are on the outside, who are on the edge of being UNC supporters to now leave. And I actually agree with Griffith. You know, when he is not too agitated on the issue, Double G regularly has some sound views on issues, some insightful opinions on some issues. And I agree that the blatant appeal to racial tribalism by Mrs. Prasad Bisasa is a sign of weakness. You're doing that to have to solidify your base, and you'd only really have to do it, especially that extreme, if you have suspicions that they aren't that solid anymore. And without a very solid base, and with small parties nipping away at your chunks of voters little by little, it may be an interesting. I don't think this coming election itself would be that interesting, but in the future, should all these things continue, and the small parties, for goodness sakes, need to stop forming stupid alliances like that. It doesn't, to me, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't work. You don't get anything really. That kind of alliance, Run on your own, win a seat, and then form the alliance after that or something of the like. That makes more sense to me. All right, people, it's a shorter one this evening tonight. I'm feeling a bit tired already. We'll call it a night there. Until the next one, I hope you're educated, informed, or entertained. I am Nathan Springer. This has been the Mindful Live. Another senior citizen that won't resign. Trinidadians can't let go of power. To be fair though, Abdul, it's not just Trinis. We see it all over the world. We see leaders all over the world that don't really have an interest in passing the baton. They want to die with the baton in their hands. Appreciated links, appreciated. All right, people.